a publisher, and one day my daughter Christina asked me to write a novel with her. Well, that day was long ago, and that little girl is now an adult. But our novels live on. The Truth Seekers Mystery Series highlights a homeschool family, the Murphy teens, in an action-adventure novel that is sure to entertain as well as teach creation truths. To get your copy, visit our website at truthseekersmysteryseries.com.
This is a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network. Welcome to the Vintage Homeschool Mom Show. Your host, Felice Gerwitz, is an author, a publisher, and your radio show host. She will encourage, educate, and inspire you with answers to your most pressing questions from homeschool, marriage, parenting, and much more. Felice loves to equip moms to live a Christian life because every moment counts. Be sure to visit her website at mediaangels.com. And here's your host, Felice Gerwitz.
Hey, welcome everyone. My name is Felice Gerwitz, and today I am going to be talking about teaching kids about truth. This is episode 422, and you can find this episode show notes at vintagehomeschoolmoms.com. So we want to teach our kids to tell the truth and to understand what is true, and how do we do this? So that's what we are going to talk about today. Before I get started, take a moment to check out mediaangels.com. If you sign up for our weekly e-zine, you get all of the upcoming shows as well as information about when our new planners are completed and ready to be downloaded for free. After the month is over, the only way you can get that planner is on the Media Angels website. I have the planners for sale on the website. Well, today I am going to be talking to the kids. I urge you to ask your kids to listen into this podcast because I am going to be talking to them and asking them many questions. So you may want to have them grab some paper and a pencil or a pen or even a computer and write down some of the questions that I'm going to ask, because later they may want to take some time to answer them and maybe talk to you guys about it, and this could start a whole conversation about truth. All right, so kids, I know your mom or dad or a grandparent or whoever it is thinks this is a good podcast for you to listen to, and I'm sure you're thinking, what is this lady talking about? I already know what truth is. And you know what? You probably do. But not only am I going to talk to you about truth, I'm going to talk to you about lies, and I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. I hope that you write these questions down and use them and see if you can learn to be better not only about telling the truth yourself, but spotting lies when you are told lies by other people. I want to show you why truth is important and how twisting something just a little bit can really change the way people think about something. And the example I'm going to use is something that we are all familiar with. I'm going to talk here about climate. In this episode, I'm not going to go into global warming or climate change because I already did a podcast on this topic, and I have the link on the website, or you can go to creationscience.com and see the interview I did with Dr. Jay Weil. He went through exactly what it means in scientific terms, and he broke it down for all of us to be able to understand. But what I am going to talk about is something that I learned as a kid, and I'm sure you're learning as a child as well. So first, I think it's important to care about our climate. It's important to be good stewards over our land and this earth. We don't throw garbage out the window, do we? We put it in trash cans. We don't pollute on purpose. We do our part. So why am I talking about climate? What does this have to do with truth? Well, I want to walk you through the way a little lie can hurt us and make us think something that's not true. When I was in school, there was a lot of talk about climate and pollution was bad in some of the cities, and people thought we should take care of our environment. So it was a good thing to learn to take care of our planet and to put in some safety measures so that when there were big factories, they would filter some of their air or recycle their water or do something to keep from polluting the lands and the oceans. So what did I learn that was bad? I learned that if we did not hurry up and do something, that in 10 years all the polar bears would be gone and ice would melt in the Arctic and the South Pole, and we could have global flooding and many areas would be devastated. This was in the 1970s. We are now in the year 2021, and guess what? We still have polar bears and we still have icebergs in both the North and South Pole. What did this lie do? Well, it caused us to be afraid. We were very fearful. I wrote papers and did big projects on this topic. I was very concerned about the environment. How do I feel now knowing the truth? That polar bears were not really going to die in 10 years? Again, I don't want to go into the climate aspect here, but I want to focus on the lie. The lie caused me to be fearful. I was a kid, and I was afraid. Scientists didn't really know what the outcome would be. It was a guess, and not a very educated guess. They caused kids in the 70s and beyond to be afraid. The idea here is that we have to understand the motivation. Why do people say what they say? What was the reason? That is something I want you to talk to your parents about. Why would people say something that is false? Why would people say things that cause kids to fear? Let's look at another example. The Green New Deal. The people who want the Green New Deal, for example, said the world would end in 12 years. Can you imagine what I thought when I heard that? It sounded a lot like I heard the same thing when I was in school. You can find the Green New Deal online. It's 6 pages long, and you can read it for yourself. It's on a congressional website, and if not, you can look at the congressional archives. They keep copies there. Later, this person who said that said they were only kidding, especially when people pushed back and said, that's not true. But why would someone say that? What is the motivation? Is a politician allowed to lie? Does it make it okay if they say, I was just kidding? Let's dig a little deeper. What does this deal talk about? It talks about getting rid of all the cows. It talks about getting rid of airplanes, getting rid of billionaires, having a universal wage. That means all people make the same amount of money. What does that have to do with pollution? What does that have to do with saving the environment? If we get rid of airplanes, how do we travel? Train? Bus? Car? Again, what is the motivation? Why would someone say something like this? Are people afraid? Yes, some people, especially if you're in public school, you hear a lot of information about climate change, and kids are afraid. I heard that in our world, not only would we not have polar bears in 10 years in the 1970s, I was afraid for our world. Kids today are being told that in 12 years, our world will end. This is not the truth. This is not science. This is to cause you to fear. So what is truth? Some people think it has to do with how you feel about something. That is not right. Truth has to do with facts and reality, or what is real. Truth cannot be subjective. Let's talk about the word subjective. Subjective truth would be truth, that is what you think. So I think it's okay and true to take your money or take something else that belongs to you. Do you think that's right? No, of course not. So subjective truth is not correct. Subjective truth does not have to do with what you think truth should be. It has to do with facts and reality. Now let's look at lying for a greater cause. For example, let's say you ask your mom if they bought you something for your birthday or Christmas and they say no, and then later you get what you asked for. Is it okay to lie about this? Now I want you to think about this question. The bigger question here is Is it right for you to set up your parents to lie in order to keep a surprise by asking them something because you cannot wait to find the answer? Think about this. So do you see that by using words we can twist things and make them more than they are? By twisting words we can make people fearful. We can prey on their emotions. We can try to manipulate them or make them do what we want them to do. That is not right. What does truth mean to you? Do you know? What is it that you believe? A starting point is helpful. I know what I believe, and I believe all truth comes from a Creator God. If God is the truth, then anything can be held up to the Ten Commandments or the Bible. Can you imagine living in a world where absolute truth does not exist? What is truth? At the time of Jesus, this very question was raised by Pontius Pilate as Jesus stood there before him waiting to be tried for something he was not guilty of. Absolute truth did not exist in the world of Pilate. Remember, we talked about subjective truth. Pilate felt he could do whatever he wanted if he had enough money, power, and control over the people. Pontius Pilate had truth standing right before him, and he could not recognize it. Even non-believers believe that Jesus was innocent when he was crucified. If you are a Christian, look up all the verses that teach about truth in the Bible. There are some very strong scripture verses about this and the sin of lying. Let's talk about little kids. You can talk to a little kid and ask them a question. For example, you can watch a little kid take a cookie and have crumbs all over the place and on their face and ask, "Did you take a cookie?" And the kid will shake their head no and say they did not, even with the evidence all over their face. Not all kids, but some, okay? Why do little kids lie, or why do people lie? Well, for many reasons. But the biggest is fear of rejection or to keep from getting in trouble. I want you to really think about this. Why do you lie? What is the reason or motivation behind a lie? Have you thought about this before? When I was in 3rd grade, I was in trouble with my mom, and she put me in my room. And I was in my room screaming at the top of my lungs, I did not do it, over and over again. In fact, I was screaming so loud that my throat began to hurt. And it finally hit me. Wait, why am I screaming? I did do it. I believe that was by the grace of God, and I grew up that day. I always prayed as a kid, and I felt like I could talk to God, and God showed me as I was pitching a fit in time out in my bedroom that I was guilty of a sin. I later apologized to my parents, and all was forgiven. Has that ever happened to you? Have you been caught in a lie and you finally realize, wait, I did do it, and ask for forgiveness? If that happens, that means you're growing up and you're becoming wise. And while you're standing up for what is right and just, you are standing up for truth and what is really true. Truth is in your heart, and your life will change for the better. Or what if you're caught in a lie and you say something like, sorry, I was kidding, or sorry, it was an accident? If you do this, think about that politician that lied that the world was ending in 12 years and later said, oh, wait, I was kidding. This is the same as saying, oops, it's an accident. When you really know, deep down in your heart, that it was not an accident, that you are not kidding. But if you say it was, you know you can get away with being punished. This is a lie. Who are you lying to? Well, your parents for one. But more importantly, you are lying to yourself. What happens when you lie to yourself? Well, you begin to see things with yourself in the center. If it is true, that means you are doing it to someone else. But if someone else does something to you, well, then it's false, and you need to pay them back in some way. Is it all about you? Is that right? Do you know anyone who only puts themselves first? How do you feel about this person? Take a minute and think about this. The question here is, can you recognize the truth? Do you know when someone is lying to you? How do you feel when someone lies to you? Think about this and write the questions down that I've asked you in this podcast and really think about it and pray about it. The next question is when someone lies to you and what you want to do back. Do you want to call them out? Do you want to scream liar? What is the right way to handle it? I'm going to give you a hint here. Screaming liar is not the right way. I want to challenge you. I want you to take the next few weeks and listen to people talking and see if you can figure out if they are telling the truth or not. But here's what I want you to do. You must not lie. If you can look at someone else and spot the truth, do you think that someone can look at you and spot the truth, or whether you are telling a lie? Do you want to be known as a liar? If you see someone telling a lie, what will you do? It's best not to say anything unless it will really hurt a person. For example, telling a little kid to step up on a high stool so that they can get the cookie down or the snack that's way up high that your mom said not to get. And then, when your mom catches you eating a snack, you can say, and this is the truth, I didn't get it down. But you really know that you helped your little brother or sister get it down. And so therefore, you're an accomplice and it's a lie. I want you to really think about this. And kids, I want to teach you something, and I call it a fun fact. Your mom, your dad, your grandparents, your aunts and uncles, your cousins, they were all young at one time. They have already lived their lives, and they know what you are up to. Kids think that parents and adults don't get them and don't understand what they're going through. Oh, yes, we do. We get you, and we remember what it was like to be a kid. It wasn't always easy and fun. Truthfulness is hard. It takes work, but it is the most rewarding thing you will ever do. Truth means apologizing when you are wrong and you tell a lie and realizing that it's not right. Truth makes us free and allows us to lead lives that have no guilt because we have nothing to hide. So why would we be guilty? I pray that you can live lives with nothing to hide and you can figure out when someone is telling the truth or telling a lie. Take care, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this podcast on telling the truth. You can find the show notes for today's episode at Teaching Kids About Truth, episode 422 at vintagehomeschoolmoms.com. Take care, God bless, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Vintage Homeschool Mom Show. Visit Felice at MediaAngels.com and TheVintageHomeschoolMoms.com. Vintage Homeschool Moms is a production of the Ultimate Homeschool Radio Network.